You know, I think it's time for us to venture into territory that no other NBA podcast has ever been in before. Let's talk about some fake trades. Welcome into the world's most innovative basketball podcast, initiating new things like trade talk and trying to figure out what exactly is going on as we approach the trade deadline. Of course, that is PHNX Suns, brought to you by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Over at Bet365, I'm Eric, that's Steven, Gerald, crazy computer guy, Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen, Matrix, Broseph, Mark, Nathan, another Mark, James, Leo, so many of you in the chat on a Tuesday afternoon. We're going to get into some trades. We're going to get into Zach LaVine, more rumors. We have some sound from Jusuf Nurkic from last night. But before that, Gerald, welcome back. You were at Footprint last night. How you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm especially good because a couple of days ago, Steven dropped his most recent Steven Studies and Notebooks, not only on this YouTube channel, but written work over at gophnx.com. Now that we have a little bit of extra time, before we get into trades, before we get into the NBA rumors, can we talk a little bit about basketball?
Sure.
Does that sound okay to you, Steven?
I mean, that's what I'm here for.
What are some of the things that you feel like are the stand out the most from your most recent notebook over at gophnx.com?
Start with Devin Booker and his scoring. He just understands the flow of the game for this team. What they need within their process from him versus what they need from the people outside of him based off of the coverages he's seeing. And he's just exploiting everything that teams have been presenting to him while also helping to uptick the pace, uptick the three-point attempts, and the advantages that create those three-point opportunities for the Suns, all off of the principles that they spoke to establishing from early in the season. And it just feels like he's playing with so much more control at this point compared to what it was before he came back from injury. Mm-hmm. And because he's leveraging his scoring the way that he is into opportunities external to him, he's now operating again like a guard that's top 5 in the NBA over the last 2 weeks. I think that's the place to start more than anything else.
Yeah, I think what you wrote wound up being prophetic when you look at last night's game in particular, mm-hmm. because that was something that Bud touched on in postgame. He felt like he had a great balance in terms of being aggressive when the Clippers weren't up to the level of the screen or blitzing him and looking for that pull-up three. Yep. And when they adjusted to blitzing him and covering him in those situations, he was making the right reads, passing out of them. I thought it was a very good point book type of game from him in the volume of threes that they were able to generate against a very good Clippers defense. And Booker was kind of the engine behind all of that. And it helps that, you know, in the month of January, he's up to 27 points a game, 7 assists, and taking 8 3-point attempts per game. He's only making 34 of those, but just by taking them, that can force the defense's hand, even if you just make 1 or 2. So it's been good to see him kind of get back in a groove and find that right balance. Obviously, it changes on a night-to-night basis based on the defense you're facing, the personnel, the coverages, all that good stuff. But last night was a good indicator of what it looks like when everything is going well and clicking.
Yeah, I think the numbers are definitely catching up to what we expected Devin Booker to be. I also think when you watch him eye test that balance of being the point guard, being the shooting guard, he just, and this is like such a basic way to break it down, he just looks like him again. And part of that we unpacked yesterday in our post-game show, which if you missed it, you absolutely should go tune that in. Steven and I went about an hour and a half on a post-game show last night because it was a big win. But the fact that it's happening when the pieces around Book are also starting to click a little bit more, whether it's Grayson Allen, whether it's Royce O'Neal, Tyus Jones, when Book was going through that really rocky stretch, especially without Kevin Durant to start the season, it was like he gets no help. How do you expect him to do this? And it was kind of a chicken or the egg, like what's going to happen first? And now both are starting to happen. And well, we'll get into trades about how to improve this team. Doesn't matter what trades you make if Devin Booker's not operating in that space. And it's just refreshing for this team to do this because all hope kind of felt lost, and now it's slowly starting to build up a little bit more, and Devin Booker is at the forefront of that.
Yeah, and not to add on to the very obvious analysis, but this team goes as Devin Booker and Kevin Durant go together. So when Book was not playing well, the Suns did not look like a great basketball team, and they still have a lot more to figure out. I don't want to blame their struggles from the last 2 months on Book just not playing well.
For sure.
Because it goes deeper than that. But yeah, when those two are on and when they're hitting some of the shots that they hit and commanding the offense the way that they're capable of doing, it can gloss over a lot of other smaller problems and make this team look better.
I think one of the biggest examples of his impact with that, the Suns had 293 team passes last night. Do you know who led them in passes made?
Devin Booker.
And can you guess how many he had last night?
Oh, it must have been, say 70 or 80?
50.
50, okay.
50, which was incrementally more than pretty much anybody else on the Suns last night. So for him to lead the team in scoring, but also lead the team in total passes made, even though it's not all leading directly to assists, just speaks to the control part that I was talking about in the film session. And past just the scoring, the drives, but not the drives to score or drives to put pressure on the rim. It's just drives to engage the people that he sees trying to help and shrink the floor on them, allowing for other people to relocate around that, picking up on who it is that's a beat or two behind in terms of rotating to where that person moved, engaging them just enough, and then getting it to the person that's open in a timely manner and allowing for them to make the next play, whether that's them scoring, driving, or passing it to someone else. It's just rapid succession on a possession-by-possession basis, regardless of what coverages he might be seeing. And just that control and that balance, being able to wear the scoring hat, but also the playmaking hat with the feel respective to the game, that's the exact player they need him to be for them to be their best selves. And for him to also do that, again, tandemizing that with scoring as well as Kevin Durant in this recent stretch of games, the 2022 playoff template is playing out right now the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you have a 23-minute video breakdown on our YouTube channel about how Book has been operating offensively as of late to pair with, of course, the written words you have over at gophnx.com. But on the defensive end with new addition Nick Richards, I know we've touched on this slightly, but you dove into that more in depth as well.
Yeah, the big thing with Nick, it was more so, like, there's a lot to talk about with him, but more than anything else is them getting more out of him being versatile in pick and roll coverage. Like, naturally last night, we saw Visa Zubac have his way, but that's not specific to Nick Richards because he's been doing that all season. He's also playing with James Harden, who is arguably still the best point guard in terms of playing and pick and roll in the league. You can put him against anybody, especially on the volume, and no one wears that hat as a scoring passer as well as he does. So it's a little bit of both with that, him having to take over for the guard, which then leaves Zubac open, which speaks to the Suns and their help defense, but Nick Richards just being able to be a chess piece for them defensively more than the players that preceded him this season is helping to help them turn a corner. I think the Suns have the 11th or 10th best defensive rating since he started playing with the Suns. It's been a little over a week now. So there's a handful of games. That's including a game where they got mollywopped by Cleveland. Yeah. So for them to still have basically a top third defensive rating with Nick Richards in their lineup speaks to his impact, but also the way that he's helped to organize everything else going on around them.
And potentially how they can build on that as well, because obviously Nick Richards has only been here for like a week, like you said. And like Bud has been saying in pregame, he's kind of playing on instinct right now. They're basically telling him, go out, be you, do your thing. But that familiarity, being on a string with your teammates, that defensive chemistry, that takes a little bit of time to develop. And we really haven't seen him block a ton of shots either, which is something that, you know, in Charlotte over the last year and a half when he's been the starter, he's been good for about 1 to 1.5 blocks a game. So I think as he gets more comfortable in reading his teammates, understanding where he needs to be at the rim to chase some of those blocks, I think it could potentially get even better on that front.
I think it's going to be exciting to watch that develop and unfold. Of course, Steven, Gerald, everybody here at PHNX Suns is going to be able to offer different sorts of analysis, whether it's video right here on PHNX Sports or, of course, written over at gophnx.com. Make sure you tap in with his notebook and, of course, the Steven Studies videos. There is a lot for you to dig into, but we also have a lot on our plate today. We are going to get into the De'Aaron Fox news, the rumors about Zach LaVine, the reporting about Bradley Beal. We have so much that we're going to get to. Some housekeeping notes, though, first. Since we were talking about last night's game, let's continue with that theme. Cam Cox over at 12 Sports was able to catch up with Jusuf Nurkic before the game. I thought that it would be worth it just to play this interaction in its entirety, and then let's unpack.
Comments the other day said that you and Coach haven't spoken in a while. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I have no future comments. I'm just trying to be a pro and stay ready.
Where do you think the relationship went wrong?
Like I said, I don't know. It's not me to analyze that. All I can do, I can't control a lot of things, but one thing I can control, be pro, stay ready.
How tough is that, not playing and then still trying just to be that professional every day?
I mean, it's NBA life, it's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And, there's a lot of, teams that watching how you behave and do. And I'm trying to be a pro as much as I can. And I've been around the league to, know how to carry myself.
Would you like to sit down with Coach Bud and iron this all out?
No comment.
Moving forward, if you're on this team, do you still believe you can help this team win?
I'm still with this team and still try to support my teammates as hard as I can. And if my number call, I'll be ready. If not, I'm still supporting my teammates.
So Nurk echoing a lot of the same sentiments that he already did to Dwayne Rankin in that story that blew up a couple days ago. The answer of no comment in terms of would you like to sit down with Bud is pretty crazy, because if you remember over the summer, this coach was going out to Croatia to visit him in his homeland, and for the relationship to deteriorate to that point when you've got a player saying we haven't spoken in 2 months and Bud saying we have had conversations about, minutes are going to be doled out as you earn them. There's a disconnect there, obviously, and it's one that you hope kind of falls by the wayside, because this type of thing can become a distraction if it festers and if he becomes a locker room problem. But his teammates have supported him, saying we understand his frustration. He also has been very supportive of us. So hopefully that continues. But I do think approaching the trade deadline, you're looking at a situation where the Suns would like to get off his contract, and both sides would probably welcome a parting of the ways.
I just hope that they're able to keep hold of one of the 3 first-round picks that they acquired last week to inevitably attach to him. Hopefully they get something of value in return for that. But that seems like the most feasible way for them to get what they want, for him to get what he wants, and potentially for another team to get something that they could see value in that the Suns just is beyond repair with them right now. So I feel like that's the best case scenario for this team right now. That's really all I got on it. It's just
I'm done. I'm done with this guy.
Because it feels like it's irreparable. Like there's no way he could regain the trust that once was already diminishing coming into this season that grew non-existent, on top of the ancillary things that he's done that got him suspended, which doubled down on the lack of trust the teammates and the coaching staff has in him. Yeah. It just feels like it's spun completely out of control at this point.
Yeah, I don't need to talk about Jusuf Nurkic anymore. Once that story came out, it was over for me. It's over, right? He's not going to play another minute for this team, I don't think. Even if it's break glass in case of emergency, I think they'll put Grayson Allen at the 5 before they play Jusuf Nurkic, and I think they're going to try whatever they can to get off of him, but I think there's also a chance that they can't. So we just kind of got to live with it. We won't dive into that anymore because we do have something to get angry about. Yeah, angry. Could you believe it? Ryan Dunn, not selected in the NBA Rising Stars Challenge. Now, I, for one, I'll be honest with you, I know I'm biased, and I know that I like Ryan Dunn.
You love Ryan Dunn.
I'm a little shocked.
You said like.
I'm a little shocked.
No, you said like.
Can we talk about Ryan Dunn playing basketball?
We can try.
I mean, we've tried to a handful of times before.
First of all, I'm not the one who pushes that agenda. Thank you very much. Okay. I just get the agenda pushed onto me. So here are the rookies that did get selected. Bub Carrington. Let me live, man. Stephon Castle, Tristan DeSilva, Zach Edey, Dalton Connect, Jared McCain, Yves Missy, Zachary Risache, Alex Sarr, which Noah put a eye roll emoji over his team logo.
Disrespect.
And then Jalen Wells. Obviously, we want Ryan Dunn to be a part of it. We wish Ryan Dunn to be a part of it. Do you feel like he got snubbed? Snubbed from the Rising Stars Challenge, Gerald.
I don't. And I love Ryan Dunn. And I wish that he was in this game because it would be fun. But like you look at the numbers, he's 15th in minutes among rookies. He's 15th in scoring among rookies. He's 14th in rebounding. Like there are only so many spots available. I think all of the guys that are ahead of him in minutes, are ahead of him in scoring. So it makes sense. It's unfortunate, but I think we all agree here that Ryan Dunn's impact is not measured on the stat sheet. And so that's the kind of disappointing part for me is it's hard to take that into account when you're just handpicking guys that you want to put in an entertaining NBA game. Defense is not something that's going to be high on that priority list, unfortunately. Jared McCain is injured, so there's a chance an injury replacement could go to Dunn, but Khalil Ware is also not on that list, and he's looking like a Rookie of the Year contender now, so he'll probably get that spot.
And I said that when you mentioned, we talked about it 2 or 3 weeks ago, Ryan Dunn being in the All-Star weekend, and I was like, yeah, that's if they allow defense to be played. They're not going to allow defense to be played because that's not what's going to drive up numbers. They're not going to have a defensive slide challenge, seeing who can slide from one side of the court to the other faster than the other. Like,
fix the ratings.
Who navigates screens the most clean, who gets clipped the most. Using
You're speaking my language.
They're not doing that. I
I
would love if they did because that's one of the most valuable skills in basketball. But nobody wants to watch me talk for an hour about screen navigation. So because of that, we're also seeing Ryan Dunn not be in the All-Star game or in the rookie challenge. Excuse me.
Well, I also think that when you're talking about impactful rookies, we can talk about minutes and points, and those are the things that go to for awards. And like you mentioned, that they're going to look forward to an All-Star weekend. But as far as impactful rookies go, I feel like Ryan Dunn is in that conversation of a handful of guys that have made legitimate impact on his team, but he does it in the ways the Suns need him to do, which is not scoring, which is not, playing, 40 minutes a game, right? But it's being a starter and being somebody who contributes consistently on a team that's trying to win a championship. Even if they're not there right now, that's still the goal. So maybe it's not a snub and I'll just calm down or whatever, but
You'd
not
be
thrilled.
disappointed.
I'm not thrilled.
I think it's fair to be disappointed as a fan because you want to see your guy in it. But
so should I cancel the protest that I have to fill out the streets of downtown Phoenix?
You should rethink it at least.
Okay.
Maybe postpone it.
Well, I'll chew on that. We forgot to set a light goal. Steven, what's the light goal for today?
250.
250.
Whoa.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Nah, you're getting a little too comfortable setting that bar low.
250 likes is going to be a big one. I believe that we can't hit that because we have so much for you coming up in the next segment. We are going to get into Fred Katz. We're going to get into Shams and Windy and Gambo and general Zach LaVine discussion with more trades than you can even imagine. All coming up after our first break. Some of these trades that Gerald was cooking up, I had to ask him, were you on some Colt cannabis when you were when you're doing this? Because my Lord, there are some crazy ones. And if Gerald was, which I'm not saying he was, then he'd be on the best premium flower in the Valley, of course, for a non-premium price. Colt cannabis is the best way to get the best weed without breaking the bank or emptying your wallet. And the best place to get it, of course, is at True Leaf locations across the Valley. And that includes a True Leaf exclusive strain in the magic marker, of course, the Valley. You have been asking for her, and now she's back. Visit TrueLeaf.com, find a local shop near you, place an order, and of course tell them that PHNX sent you in all their crazy Zach LaVine trades. Good flower is hard to find these days. Well, it's only hard to find if you don't know about Colt Cannabis at True Leaf. And there's a new True Leaf location that opened up in Maricopa. Go to TrueLeaf.com, find that shop, and place an order, and tell them that PHNX sent you. Now, one of the best things that you can do in life is go watch some live music, right? Go to a live sporting event, go to the theater, go to watch some stand-up comedy. And our friends over at Game Time, they make it so much easier for you to do that at a cheaper price. Now, the best part about Game Time is the Game Time picks. It filters out the fluffs and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling and searching and clicking on a seat and I don't really want that one. No, Game Time makes it easy. You can see your view from the seat. You can do all-inclusive pricing so you don't get shocked by any fees or anything that's hidden until you check out, and all of a sudden your $200 cart turns into $450 without adding any extra tickets. That's not happening over at Game Time. Plus, one of the best parts about Game Time is that the longer you wait, sometimes you can get cheaper deals. Shout out to the procrastinators out there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account. Redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Woo! We see those likes going up. We appreciate that. Michael, Lucky Dab, Ted, Brian, Nathan, Sean, Juju, everybody who's in the chat who's helping us out on this Tuesday afternoon. Almost breaking about 300 people in here. Let's get that up. Let's get a large number of people in here because we got a whole lot of trade news to break down. Let's start semi-chronologically. Let's start with the Jimmy Butler news. Brian Windhorst jumped on with Scott Van Pelt late last night after the Suns' big win over the Clippers and had this to say about the Bradley Beal situation.
Discussions with the league, and I want to be real careful. I am not saying this is for sure going to happen. I am not predicting what's going to happen. But I do think some teams that thought they were out of this are coming back in because it doesn't look like the Suns and Heat are going to be able to consummate a deal. I think we might see a team swoop in here and get Jimmy Butler at a cheap price, a guy who can be the best player in a playoff series at a bargain price. And I think that's the phase of this where we're at. And so if a team pulls that off, and I'm not going to tell you the teams that are trying because I can't wade into those waters. This could be a trade that affects the outcome of this season. So definitely a very interesting next 2, 3, 4 days here.
Ooh, is it dead, Gerald? Is it over? Phoenix Suns, Jimmy Butler, what could have been but never will be?
It could be, but it also could just be the continued posturing that we see throughout this process. It's a game. It's a game.
So sick of
There's
this,
so
dude.
many conflicting agendas. There's so many things that are being leaked to make this situation worse, to try and give one side leverage in negotiations and where they want to go, etc. So at this point, you just kind of have to strap in and wait to see where Jimmy Butler lands up. I wouldn't say it's dead, considering there's still more than a week left before the NBA trade deadline. There's still a lot of time for things to change and then change back and then change a third time. So I think that's kind of just what we're going through here. But if the Heat are legitimately easing up their level of requirement in terms of what they want back in a Jimmy Butler trade, that does open the door for other teams to potentially swoop in while the Suns are trying to scramble and organize this multi-team trade.
That's exactly what it is. It's a lot of leverage playing. So for Erik and others that are reacting to every bit of news that comes our way, I apologize for your emotional capacities in these trying times.
I apologize for your emotional capacities. Might be the meanest thing anybody's ever said.
In these
That's
trying
amazing.
times, I really do. But you gotta listen to
Sorry, you're a
people
little
like Gerald.
B-word. That's basically what you're saying to me.
You
Oh,
gotta
you're so
listen.
sensitive, Erik.
You gotta listen to the people that are trying to look out for your well-being in these very trying times. We have people that lose sleep over stuff like this so that you don't have to exhaust your emotions.
Stephen said, in this economy, you need to stop being so emotional.
See, there are other things that I need to worry
I'm
about.
just saying that there's a lot of posturing going on. They're doing it in broad daylight in front of our faces every single day via multiple different means of outlets that that cover the league. So you just gotta sit back and be patient. I know it's hard. I've witnessed how hard
Why
it is.
am I getting lectured in all of this?
Because Erik is a microcosm for a lot of Suns fans. And the things we see on our timeline.
Dude is just reading me in front of hundreds of people.
That's crazy.
It's just dissecting me piece by piece. That's crazy.
I just want everybody to be great, and I don't want people being emotionally spent
There's
over a
feeling
basketball
seen,
team.
and
Dude,
then there's being exposed.
This is Jared. Okay, first of all, I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Gerald, basically what he's doing, he's staring at me and he's saying, Erik, your emotions are getting in the way of your job, your personal life, your responsibilities.
Yeah.
I'm worried about you as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But
You're
damn,
welcome.
man. Damn.
The concern is
welcome.
genuine, which I think makes it that much. Like,
I hope
twisting the
you
knife.
know that I'm not losing any sleep over Jimmy Butler.
No, I
just-
know you're not losing sleep, but
Then why are you talking to me?
I'm talking about the responses to every bit of news that comes out.
No, I know. It's tough because I feel like with especially everything, and let's unfold the De'Aaron Fox part of it all, because of
Sure.
course that hit the NBA world
Yeah.
today about De'Aaron Fox now being willing and wanting to be traded and having a team that he's focused on. There are reports conflicting about what team it is, but right after we get, we don't know if this deal is going to be able to be facilitated. Well, now a big player and one of the teams that Gerald included in his article and the show that we did that could facilitate this trade, Sacramento, has a big chunk of contract and a good player who now wants to be moved. So as much as we might think, or I might think in the moment last night it was dead, De'Aaron Fox might open it up a little bit more.
It could. It feels like something that might be tangentially related or something that's just not related at all, to be honest with you, because if you look at the reporting that's coming out, all of it's linking De'Aaron Fox to wanting to go to San Antonio. That doesn't mean he'll necessarily work his way there before the trade deadline or even at all.
Well, who's his agent again?
His agent is Rich Paul, and Rich Paul does get what he wants
very
a lot of the
relevant.
time, or more accurately, gets what his client wants. So that is something to consider there. And like I think somebody said, he also built a home in Houston recently.
Mhm.
The Rockets are another team that could put together a deal. I don't know how you loop in Jimmy Butler and the Suns or Zach LaVine and the Suns into that type of structure there. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. But yeah, we did a couple weeks ago. We put together a Jimmy Butler trade that involved De'Aaron Fox going to the Heat in like a 5-team deal. And I thought it was crazy at the time because the Kings were winning and it felt like they had gotten their season back on track and this wasn't going to be an issue for them. But like we said at the time, things could change very rapidly. So we're kind of seeing that right now. And maybe it does open the door if the Suns can find a way to loop themselves in or loop the De'Aaron Fox, Kings, Spurs, Rockets, whoever the hell trade into it.
Gerald, that was, I believe, a week ago.
It was only a week ago.
7 days ago.
Yeah.
The longest 7 days of our life. Just a refresher. This is the 5-team trade that Gerald cooked up. The Suns getting Jimmy Butler, Torrey Craig. The Heat getting De'Aaron Fox and Trey Lyles. The Magic getting Bradley Beal and a second-round pick. The Bulls getting KCP, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, a second-round pick and a first-round pick. And the Kings getting Zach LaVine and 2 first-round picks. So that was a trade that Gerald cooked up. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more talk about De'Aaron Fox, but it might help facilitate. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a massive deal. We've heard Charlotte. We've heard Toronto. Other teams being willing to help facilitate. The Wizards. But we did get some reporting from Fred Katz of The Athletic. And he was saying, guess what? Phoenix Suns guard Bradley Beal will not waive his no-trade clause to go to the Chicago Bulls. He says a source familiar with the 3-time All-Star's thinking told The Athletic. Now, there was a follow-up on this. Somebody asked to Gambo, and yes, Gambo is very reliable with these things, said, hey, mate, any truth to Beal rejecting a trade to the Bulls? Gambo said, I do not believe that report is true. Now, I'm kind of reading in between the lines on the Gambo thing, but overall, if Bradley Beal is saying no to Chicago, that more than anything might put the brakes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's unclear in Gambo's response if he's saying that no, a trade was presented to him and he denied it, or no, he would deny a trade to Chicago. That nuance there is important, I think, to figure out moving forward. But yeah, if Bradley Beal is not interested in Chicago, or if the Bulls are not interested in Bradley Beal, because it's going to take 2 to tango with that no trade clause, that does make it a little bit more difficult, not impossible. We've talked about, I continue to push Orlando as a team that makes sense to me in terms of a potential landing spot for Beal, for himself and for the team that's adding him. But there's been zero report that Orlando is interested in him. They could just be content with chugging along with what they have, getting healthy again, getting back on track, even though I do think he would help them because they're the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. So yeah, just another thing to keep an eye on, another example of leverage and posturing and all that good stuff that we were just talking about.
I think there's ways where the De'Aaron Fox situation, the Beal situation, the Butler situation can all help to facilitate something that makes all existing parties happy. Hopefully that's something that maybe you wrote about. Maybe it's something else that exists out there that we're just not privy to from our perspectives. But I feel like there's just too many big pieces that are burgeoning for a move that will need help from a team outside of the direct team that they're going to end up or desiring to go to for it to happen. So I don't know. This feels like something where the NBA is putting together a nice little channel in their in the history for trades and trying to one up themselves. The one-off trades are cool between two teams. What about if we hit like a 16 or 17 trade?
Let's get to double digits.
It feels like they're trying to one up themselves.
We have a chance of breaking the record because over last summer, the Klay Thompson sign-in trade involved 6 teams, and that was the most teams that were involved in a single trade transaction. We could potentially pass that. Like I don't think it's guaranteed. That's a lot of different teams you have to get on the same page and get an agreement and like what they're receiving in return. But there are a lot of parts that want to be moved right now.
Maddie, tell him. We need you to tell him how it is. We need you to pull that off. Well, is it worth trading for Zach LaVine? Not only are we going to bring you multiple trades on how to get LaVine here, we are going to unpack, is that something the Suns should do? And we're going to do it after you hit that like button, because we're getting closer, but we're not nearly close enough to 250 likes. So once you hit that like button, and of course after this break. Hey, listen to me. If you're trying to sell your home or you're trying to buy a home, write down this number right now, 480-776-5231. Of course, you know by now that is the number for the Carol Royce team, who has sold over 12,000 homes across the valley, family-owned and locally operated through 3 generations of family members, and not only giving you the right choice, but giving you the guaranteed choice. And as a buyer, with all the uncertainty in the world, especially in the housing market, especially when it comes to settling in and making sure you love your home, you want the guaranteed choice. And that's exactly what she's giving you. Love your home, or Carol's gonna buy it back from you and give you a chance to go find the one that you like. So if you're considering buying a home in 2025, the name to trust is clearly the Carol Royce team. Your home sold guaranteed realty. Move up to one of their listings and they'll buy your home for cash. Have questions, call today or visit Carol online at carolroyceteam.com. That, of course, is carolroyceteam.com. This show, of course, never ordinary. The NBA, never ordinary. Trade rumors, never ordinary. Bet365, never ordinary. Not just the over 90 million users worldwide, or the live streams of over 800,000 events, or early payout offers in the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, or the fact that Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting. It is also the smoothest, easiest betting app to use. It is so much easier than a lot of other apps out there, and they have a basketball early payout offer. If your team goes up 20 and you put down money line, you get an instant payout. Boom, right into your account. Plus, you also have a new customer opening account offer. New customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets, of course, can be used on spread, totals, player pops, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, you must be 21 plus and physically located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov.
Can we address, because a lot of people are asking about De'Aaron Fox and coming to the Suns, and we didn't explicitly say it. I don't think that's happening, guys. Like, De'Aaron Fox is going to require multiple firsts, and I know the Suns just traded their 2031 first to split it up into 3 first rounders, but they're offering Bradley Beal and 3 firsts. Even if you loop in another team to help facilitate sending Sacramento more of the stuff that they want, I don't see that being a realistic possibility.
I don't see that being a realistic possibility, but we got to shift gears quickly here. This is going to be a long episode, everybody. We haven't gotten to the trades yet. The Suns have assigned Oso Ighodaro to the G League. How do we feel about that move?
People are already asking me, does that mean that he's been traded? What does it mean another center is coming in? It just means that he's not really getting minutes on the team right now, and so they want him to get some playing time with the Valley Suns. This is something that a lot of teams do with their rookies, especially second-round rookies who aren't getting a lot of minutes. So it makes sense. I would like to see more Ighodaro playing time on the court, but Mason Plumlee has done well in the backup role. They just traded for Nick Richards, and he's been starting and been doing pretty great for the most part. So this really isn't a big deal or anything to freak out about, just trying to get him some more reps.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. Best way to expedite a player's skill development is to give them game reps and at the highest volume possible. That's why I've been very pro give him as many minutes on the NBA level to see how much you can get out of him and accurately gauge where he is in his development from where he is, where he was when you drafted him, and where you need him to be a main rotation type of player. this feels like a move that's going to help them at least get more clarity as far as that goes, while also being able to stay afloat after the Nick Richards trade.
It'll be fun to watch him get more run for sure. And I think especially for him because he is so smart. He's very athletic, and we've seen him start against NBA teams. We've seen him hold his own against NBA teams. So going down to the G League hopefully can help him develop his offensive game a little bit more, his touch, maybe focus more on building some of his strength up, his body, getting through contact and learning through play. I'm a little shocked though. I am a little surprised. I know he hasn't been playing a lot as of late, but I would not have put my money on this.
I mean,
and if I did, I would have called the number.
It's one of those things that you don't really think about until it happens, honestly. But once it does, it makes sense. The Valley Suns are in Salt Lake City tonight and tomorrow. So I'm curious if they're flying him out there for tonight's game or for tomorrow's game, because the Suns have a game Wednesday before they hit the road on a short little road trip coming up. But a lot of times, keep in mind, like when guys get assigned to the G League, it could just be for a day or two, and then they get pulled back.
Yeah.
We've seen that with Colin Gillespie. We've seen that with way back when they still had a G League team before they sold it. We saw guys go back and forth on like a day-to-day basis. So it's not a huge deal. It's not like he's been demoted for the rest of the season or anything.
Yeah, we'll track that as that continues to develop. Sorry we missed some of your super chats earlier. Meant to mention those in the second segment. Grant with a $4.99 super chat says, how do y'all feel about Gambo saying he doesn't believe Brad would / did shut down Wavy as no trade clause for Chicago? After Fred Katz said that yesterday, we did already address that. Very sorry I didn't bring your super chat up before, but we really appreciate you, Grant. Psycho Blue with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Psycho Blue. Says Basketball Cthulhu is getting deja vu with this Jimmy Butler stuff, as it reminds him of when the Suns made preemptive moves to prep for LaMarcus Aldridge acquisition that never actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. When they made that move, it felt like there was momentum towards them having a larger deal in mind. But I genuinely think whether it's Jimmy Butler or some other trade, it gives them more flexibility, which they value, because only having that one valuable pick left in your arsenal, it limits what you're able to do in terms of multi-team trades. So,
yeah. Makai with a $4.99 super chat says, could Fox of the Spurs threaten the Suns' current playoff spot? I'm just thinking about how close the standings are. Anything could happen. Steven?
For me, it depends on who's going where.
Yeah.
If Fox ends up with the Spurs, because the Spurs are an incomplete roster at this moment. It's very much Wemby-centric with a little bit of Stephon Castle sprinkled in. Obviously, a great bit of Chris Paul controlling the floor of their offense and pushing certain buttons. Also, Harrison Barnes having a very, very good season for this team all around everything that Wembanyama is. So depends on who's going out, who's coming in with Fox, and how quickly things can work in their favor as far as that goes, because they have a lot of ground to make up, because they don't have the tiebreaker in a lot of the scenarios with the teams ahead of them in the Western Conference right now. So they will have an uphill battle with that.
It would depend on what the Suns get back, and maybe Zach LaVine's in that package. Before we talk about all the trades that Gerald put together, that of course you can read over at gophnx.com. Real briefly, is it worth it? Obviously, what you give up is important, but adding Zach LaVine to this team with his specific skill set, Gerald, is this something that you feel like it would be beneficial for the Suns to pursue and eventually actually get done?
I personally have a mixed opinion on this. I do see some of the ways that he would help the Suns compared to Bradley Beal. Like, okay, he's only an inch taller, but size for this group does matter. His shot profile in terms of the number of threes that he gets up, the catch and shoot ability, he's shooting, I think, a career best percentage from three around 45% on like 7 attempts. That's really good, and that could help. Bradley Beal has been a great catch and shoot 3-point guy over his time in Phoenix, but Zach LaVine, a little bit different level in that respect. I think the athleticism helps. And he's on a slightly lesser contract compared to Beal, even though they run for the same duration of years. I do still have questions about the fit. He's a worse defender than Beal, and he would have to really step up. I think he's gotten better in that respect. He's no longer a glaring weakness on that end, but he's still not a positive on the defensive side of the ball. He's only an inch taller than Beal, so you're still dealing with some of the size issues. You're still dealing with the positional overlap between him and Booker. And it's been a while since Zach LaVine has been a third fiddle. So how does he attack the Bradley Beal role in terms of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker having the ball in his hands a lot and Zach having to play off the ball in a tertiary role? I think he could do it, but there's no guarantee that that works out well. And considering the draft capital you'd probably have to give up to get him, I'm a little on the fence about his potential fit in Phoenix. I think he's a better player at this stage. He's younger. He's more healthy than Bradley Beal, so I get the advantages there. But this for me is more about the Suns not seeing Bradley Beal as a fit if they were to trade for LaVine than like a huge upgrade.
My thing with the LaVine trade would be how bought in would he be to a third fiddle role? Because that, again, is going to take on a different look on a nightly basis. Sometimes they're going to, especially with the way that the Suns roster is set up right now, they're going to need him to step up and guard a Paul George, guard a Kawhi Leonard at times, guard a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at times, especially if Ryan Dunn's not on the court. There's no other player that they have that can do that. And in the template that we've seen with the Suns, if it hasn't been Ryan Dunn, it's been Bradley Beal doing that. So how does he hold up playing that myriad of hats that he would have to make this big three work with the Suns? I think it would be a positive as far as them having somebody that can take over for Grayson Allen in terms of the three-point shooting volume. It feels like he shoulders the brunt of a lot of that and the movement things and relocation things that the Suns need within their half-court offense to make things work the way that they need to. Zach can do those things, but that's not something we've seen him do. Even if just in the Bulls context before he got traded there. He just hasn't been a player that's bought into that movement shooter role. I think Billy Donovan tried to get that out of him when he first got to the Bulls. It just didn't sustain. It's not something that he's comfortable doing on high volume, but that's the exact role that this team would need him to play for them to get the absolute most out of him. So little things like that, holding up on defense, and like I said, just buying into a role that he's never played before.
Should be interesting. We will maybe see it, maybe we won't. But how do we get there? Oh, well, Gerald, he has that all figured out. It is time. Hit that like button. Everybody make sure you subscribe to PHNX Sports. Grab a snack, grab a drink, send this link to your closest friends. Let's finally get into some trades. Start off with number one, as you labeled it in your story, the basic B package. Now, you use some names that I can't use on this show.
Yes.
So make sure you go to gophnx.com, click on that article, read this in its entirety. But let's start off with the most basic of basic Zach LaVine trades. Gerald, how does this go down?
Yeah, so this one has its pros and cons. The Suns get their guy in Zach LaVine, allegedly, their alleged guy from Jake Fisher saying they might have interest, and they get Patrick Williams from the Bulls, taking on his remaining 4 years and $72 million in salary beyond the season. The Bulls get Bradley Beal, Jusuf Nurkic, a 2027 first-round pick from the Suns, and a 2029 first-round pick. Now, this trade would technically have to be two separate transactions because, as we've covered, the Suns are a second-apron team, which means they cannot aggregate salaries. But fortunately, Patrick Williams and Jusuf Nurkic works straight up by itself. So they would be separate transactions that would encompass this larger exchange. The Suns keep their pick in this year's draft, the 2025 first rounder from probably Cleveland. That's going to be number 30 or number 29. But they do keep their first. The Bulls get 2 firsts. They get off of the remaining money on Patrick Williams, which I guarantee they're feeling buyer's remorse about right now. I get it. If Beal doesn't want to go to Chicago or the Bulls aren't interested in Beal, that automatically kills this deal, obviously. And I got to caution Suns fans who might get excited about Patrick Williams. He might just not be very good.
Might not be.
I mean, last night they brought him off the bench, something that Bulls fans have been clamoring for months on end now. And he turned in arguably his best game of the season. I think he was plus 16 or something like that off the bench in a win over the Nuggets. That's not a feat to scoff at, but that's not what you should expect from him on a nightly basis. I think he had 11 and 8 in that game. That's not what you're going to get from Patrick Williams consistently. And for Suns fans that do get excited about the prospect of him, remember the inconsistencies with Nurkic that you continue to judge on a game-by-game basis. Add a multiplier to that because of the expectation that would come with Patrick Williams being a younger, athletic wing, a position that this team needs. You would be in a very similar situation in terms of wanting to see more from him and questioning other things that are not basketball.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that's prefaced with the right lens to gauge it through in terms of looking at Pat Williams as a prospect.
Nathan in the chat says, I live in the Chicago market. Trust me when I tell you, Patrick Williams ain't it, fellas.
He's averaging about 4 rebounds a game at 6'8". He's shooting 37% from the floor. He struggles to finish around the rim. shooting 35% despite being, I think, a 39 or 40% career 3-point shooter.
Are we talking about Patrick Williams or my pickup game?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is a trade that you can add the Nurkic for Pat Williams sidebar in any of these trades that we're talking about if Chicago needs a little bit more incentive, but you are taking on extra years and extra money at a Nurkic price range, which is why the Bulls might be interested in adding that on.
We got a lot more trades to get to. We're running a little behind schedule. It's okay. We'll stick around because we like all of you in here. Thank you so much for joining us. Over 420 nice of you in here right now on a Tuesday afternoon. We are almost halfway to our like goal. I'm not going to lie. I am a little disappointed. We haven't gotten closer. Steven did set a high bar, but there's more than enough people in here. It keeps going up. Smash that like button. Not only is it fun to hit our goal, but it actually does help us stick around and keep the lights on, which is also what we're going to do with this break. Now, this hat that I'm rocking right now, it's backwards. I'm not going to turn around. That's a lot of work. But it's a custom PHNX branded Bills hat. Now, not only is it awesome that we have our own logo and we can customize our own hats, but it's the feel, it's the quality of them as well. You can keep your head cool when you go out and do outdoor activities. They're good, stylish. They're not going to be falling apart either. It's basically the easiest way to elevate your brand with branded Bills. It's the perfect headwear and apparel, snapbacks, truckers, fitted, beanies, tees, and more. Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. Maybe you have a fantasy football league, right? I know Steven used to compete on a flag football team out in Chicago, and he would run it.
A championship
team. And champion,
right.
and he was QB1, right? Like, he was the guy, right? So if you wanted to build team morale, you could have gotten your team logo on a Branded Bills hat, and you could have gotten 20% off your first order. Head to brandedbills.com. That's my fault for not putting you on. Head to brandedbills.com. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And super exciting, this Friday, Suns Warriors, we are doing a watch party over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Windhorst Pass. That's for you, Buddha the Schizo, who came to the wrong casino last time. Windhorst Pass is where we are doing our watch party this Friday. Show up before the game. We'll be doing our pregame show live from there. We'll be chatting with all of you. We'll be watching the game, cheering on the Suns, or crying together, all at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, because truly nobody does it better. Plus, you can also enter for your chance to win $5.9 million. Yeah. Wow. $5.9 million on the big game. They're giving you a chance to win it with their free prop play from January 27th. That's yesterday to February 8th. Visit GilaPropPlay.com to answer 26 questions about the big game for your shot at the grand prize. That's GilaPropPlay.com. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details, or check out the link in the description below. Thank you so much, Ted, Tenardo, Buddha, David, Gerald's in the chat, Kevin, Mac. Thanks, everybody who's in here right now. And for those likes that definitely shot up right after I asked for it. Mark also in the chat, too. Let's keep it chugging along with Zach LaVine trades. This one is labeled a Pistons trade for Noah. Yes. Gerald, break it down.
For our crazy computer boy. The Suns get Zach LaVine. The Bulls get Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton via a $17.5 million trade exception. Marjon Beauchamp via another trade exception. 2025 and 2029 first-round picks from the Suns. A 2027 second-rounder from Detroit. And a second-rounder from the Bucks in 2031. The Bucks get Bradley Beal, Torrey Craig on a vet minimum. The 2027 Suns first rounder, the 2029 Pistons second rounder, that is from Milwaukee, so they get their own second rounder back. And then the Pistons get Bobby Portis, which they're able to do because they have about $14 million in open cap space, so they can just absorb him without sending any salaries out. And if you're wondering, the Bucks are a second tax apron team, so normally aggregation would be not allowed, but because they're shedding enough salary in this deal to get below the second tax apron after this trade is complete, they are allowed to send out multiple contracts here. Suns get LaVine, Bulls get expirings to flip the next 2 years with Middleton plus 2 firsts and 2 seconds. They shed about $14 million in salary. It's an interesting deal.
Well, and let's keep on looking at this, because I'm looking at all these first round picks that are exiting. So the Suns are trading all of their first round picks.
Yes.
In this deal.
They are giving up all 3 because, like, the Bucks, even if they want Bradley Beal, you're still taking on Bradley Beal's contract and you're giving up 3 players.
Can we get Torrey Craig instead? Is that possible in this deal?
Potentially, you would have to send another vet minimum to Milwaukee, I believe, to make the math
You can have Ball.
work.
Yeah, I don't know if that would. I don't know.
No, the Suns can't, unfortunately.
Oh, the
Suns can't do that.
I mean that would be nice.
But I think for the Bucks, they're getting Torrey Craig in this deal because they're sending 3 players out or 4 players out, so they need 2 at least coming in return.
And Jen in the chat saying, I thought the Bucks don't want Beal. The reason why we unpack it in multiple different situations is because so much different conflicting reporting.
Subterfuge
season. Very well, he could not want to go to Milwaukee. I think it's completely on the table. Same thing with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't know for sure unless, Jen, you're talking to Beal, which if you are,
good on you.
Would love to know what's going on. But
in the last 2 weeks, we've heard that the Bucks are interested in Beal, and then we've heard that the Bucks are not interested in Beal. We've heard that Beal would be interested in Chicago, and then he would turn down Chicago. So we're just trying to be thorough. We honestly at this point don't know what Beal would say yes or no to. Maybe he doesn't want to leave because his family's here in Phoenix and he wants to be on a competitive team. We just don't know, so we're going to be as thorough as possible.
I would say for Bulls fans and all of the discourse I've seen since the Alex Caruso trade, this would be a recoup for them in terms of the assets of draft capital that they would get in return in this trade template that you're speaking to. That would be something that I don't know how well they'll manage it, but them having that in return for any of the talents that they had on this roster the last handful of seasons would be something that's refreshing for them. I think the Suns being able to help with that helps their chances in terms of getting a player that could shift things for them in different ways. I don't feel like the Beal for LaVine swap is as even as other people say it is. I think there's obviously positives and negatives in it, but I think the Suns getting LaVine would be able to shift things in a way that they can't do with Beal right now.
Well, let's keep unpacking ways to get LaVine then. Maybe we could shift things. Let's get magical, Gerald.
Yeah. I keep talking about how I love the Magic as a potential destination for Beal. This is a fun one, a 5-teamer where the Suns get Zach LaVine and Torrey Craig. The Bulls get Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, and Gary Harris from Orlando, Pat Connaughton from Milwaukee. They get first-rounders from Phoenix in 2025 and 2029. The Bucks get Jimmy Butler, Josh Richardson, and Alec Burks, both of those last 2 coming on vet minimums. The Heat get Chris Middleton, Mo Wagner from Orlando, Josh Giddey from Chicago, the Suns' other first-rounder in 2027, the Bucks' valuable first-rounder in 2031, which is the only first they can give up, and the Magic get Bradley Beal and Bobby Portis. This was predicated on the Bulls being interested in Isaac. He's got like 4 years left on his contract, decent amount of money. The good news is the last 2 years are fully non-guaranteed, and the year before that is only partially guaranteed. So maybe he's a player that they see, 27-year-old, good defender, someone that can help us during this rebuild, this retool. They also take a flyer on Cole Anthony. Gary Harris is basically $7.5 million in expiring money because he has a team option that they can decline. And Mo Wagner, like, he's down for the season, I believe. Orlando replaces him with Bobby Portis, getting another stretch big who plays with toughness and a little bit of a crazy streak. So that would be a pretty nice haul for them, I think.
I think the Magic getting Bradley Beal and Bobby Portis would be awesome for how they currently play basketball and the different layers and elements that those two will bring as far as three-point shooting at different positions as well. That would be really fun, and I see those two players really plugging in nicely with their current roster. I don't see a lot of overlap with those players and their skill sets. For the Bulls, I don't know if they could talk themselves into Jonathan Isaac, but you still get 2 first-round picks, which is not bad, including one rather immediately. Bucks getting Jimmy Butler instantly upgrades them. And the Heat, that's the tough one for me here, is the Heat having to talk themselves into trying to be win now with Chris Middleton. And then, yeah, you get some valuable first-round picks, but they have been very staunch, Steven, in that they want to have a win now player, and they need to make the playoffs this season for draft implications.
I think Middleton will help them as a player that's not going to take the ball out of Tyler Herro's hands. It's not going to take the ball out of Bam Adebayo's hands. He can play complementary basketball to them while also giving them someone that can knock down the shots they need to, that they got in a similar fashion with Jimmy Butler. The late shot clock, you got 4 seconds to make a move and hit a bucket after things broke down. So I like that in that respect for Miami, and also obviously get draft compensation with that as well.
And they get Josh Giddey.
Expiring money. Both Wagner and Giddey could be expiring money. That would be about $19 million that they shed off the books, in addition to what they're already shedding with this trade. So
complete sidetrack here. So, the NBA had the Paris games.
Mhm.
There were like 5 or 6 jerseys that were up for sale at the Paris games. It was like Jason Tatum, like Luka, Shea. Josh Giddey's jersey
really
was up there.
in Paris?
In the Paris games.
Interesting.
And people were
trying
saying
to-
because they're maybe because it's the Chicago Bulls, but it's like out of all the players to pick. And this is from somebody who was at the games.
It's interesting.
So just thought I'd throw that out there for everybody. Some people in the chat are saying this is maybe their favorite trade that they've seen and the most
that's
realistic
good.
as well.
Some are not. And to answer the question why the Suns would trade Beal for LaVine, 3 picks, and keep Nurkic, again, you can add the Nurkic Pat Williams sidebar and on any of these trades because it functions as its own separate trade. So if you like that part of the equation, you want to get off of Nurk, and you're okay with taking Pat Williams back, Nurk for Pat Williams is honestly one of the few, if only, trades I can think of where the Suns dump Nurkic somewhere and don't have to send out a first-round pick with him.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind.
Well, hold on to your butts, or at least that's what Gerald labeled this next trade. Woo, we're getting crazier and crazier.
We're tying some NBA records now with a 6-team deal. This would be tied for the largest transaction in NBA history. Suns get Zach LaVine and Torrey Craig on a vet minimum. Bulls get Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, the 2025 and 2029 first-round picks from the Suns. The Bulls get Jimmy Butler and Josh Richardson on a vet minimum. The Heat get Bruce Brown Jr., Kelly Olynyk, and Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors, as well as the Bucks' 2031 first-round pick. We have gotten reports that the Heat are interested in Bruce Brown. We've also gotten reports that the Raptors are interested in facilitating a Jimmy Butler trade with Bruce Brown's $23 million expiring contract. Chris Boucher also on basically an $11 million expiring contract. The Raptors get Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, Mo Wagner, and for taking on that type of salary, they are rewarded with a first-round pick from the Suns in 2027 and a 2031 second-rounder from the Bucks. The Magic get Bradley Beal and Bobby Portis. My big concern here is that's not enough draft capital going to Toronto for giving up Boucher, Olynyk, Bruce Brown, and taking on contracts that, Mo Wagner can be expiring with his team option already being declined, but those other 2 guys have an extra year on their salary. So is that enough for them? I don't know.
I would be surprised if Toronto said yes to this in its current construct. But if they were to, I think it's even around the board for everybody excluding them. Specifically for Milwaukee, the funny timeline of Damian Lillard wanting to play with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Portland saying, no, you take Milwaukee and you'll like it. And then 2 years later, Jimmy saying, okay, cool. Well, now how about what if I want to go play with Milwaukee instead? And them ultimately getting what they want to also play with Giannis in addition to that. That's something that I think gets them over the hump and really puts them in that top 3 of the East. But for the Suns, obviously, Torrey Craig, bringing him back again. Having, what's her name? What's the actress? Emma Stone and Megan Thee Stallion sitting courtside for the Suns games. Vibes. And naturally, Zach LaVine doing what he does on the court. Vibes. I don't know. I like this trade construct. If this is what they're going with, and Jimmy ultimately has opened up the book to saying I would go to Milwaukee as well, and this is what allows for each of these teams with a disgruntled star to get what they desire.
That dude says these trades are just helping other teams get better. A, that's the Phoenix Suns way. B, there's no way that you're going to be able to pull off this trade without other people's interests being aligned. So there's no way the Suns make a deal to get LaVine, to get Butler, where they're walking away. Oh, only the Phoenix Suns
winners
are going to be the winners.
At least the teams that they're helping are not in their conference.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a big part of it too, is you don't want to help, the teams that are directly competing for your playoff spots and are trying to get to the finals in your conference.
Yep, exactly.
We are so close to getting to the end here, but we still have a lot more as well. If you are watching on TV, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, the party always continues, whether it's our live shows, whether it's Suns, Cardinals, Diamondbacks, ASU, Wildcats, Mercury, which we're going to touch on at the end here. So much over at GoPHNX.com. PHNX.com, and of course, writing as well. Steven's notebook that we mentioned earlier, of course, Gerald writing about Bradley Beal and the fan incident, and of course, all of these trades that we were bringing to you today, all of that in written form over at PHNX.com. Still almost 500 of you in here on a Tuesday afternoon. We are still over 100 likes away from that like goal. There are more than enough people in here to hit that. So let's do that. Let's get to 250 before the end of it. Gerald, we have him, as you put it, an 8-team bleep your pants mega deal.
We should emphasize that it's poop in terms of what is happening with the pants. But yes, let's get into it because this is insane, and I drove myself crazy trying to work out the math on this one. The Suns are getting Zach LaVine, and they're taking on Patrick Williams from Chicago. The Heat are getting Bruce Brown, Chris Boucher from Toronto. They're getting Mo Wagner from Orlando. They're getting the 2031 Bucks first rounder, and they're getting a second rounder from Detroit in 2028. The Bucks are getting Jimmy Butler, Torrey Craig, and Josh Richardson, both of those last two guys on vet minimums. The Bulls are taking on Jusuf Nurkic for less money than Pat Williams has. They're also getting Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, first rounders from the Suns in 2025 and 2029, plus a second rounder from Detroit in 2029. The Raptors take on Middleton, Connaughton. They take a flyer on Bobby Clintman, who's a rarely used rookie from this season. They get the Suns 2027 first round pick, a second rounder from Detroit in 2027. The Magic get Bradley Beal and another stretch big, Kelly Olynyk from Toronto. The Pelicans get Isaiah Stewart to address their lack of center depth, and they get Tim Hardaway Jr. on an expiring contract, plus a first rounder from the Pistons in 2027. And the Pistons add Bobby Portis, who seems like he was born to be a Detroit Piston, and CJ McCollum, who fills in as a Jaden Ivey replacement for the rest of the season, a guy with only 1 year on his contract after this, who could easily slide from starting to bench role, depending on what the team needs from him, and would help with some of their scoring and ball handling. Couple disclaimers, because people are asking, why aren't the Suns getting Jimmy Butler in any of these trades? Because first of all, we built these around Zach LaVine trades. Secondly, you can't always get what you want. Thirdly,
but I want it.
Thirdly, this is all based on the report from, I believe, Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, that the Suns could pivot to Zach LaVine if Jimmy Butler falls through. So this is a potential fallback option. So we're exploring what Zach LaVine trades might look like. This one's a little bit crazy. But your initial reactions.
And this would have to be a separate trade too, the same way with Patrick Williams and Jusuf Nurkic. So this would not only be an 8-team trade, this would be an 8-team trade with multiple parts.
Yes.
Along with it. I think you're insane.
I am insane.
In the most complimentary way possible.
Thank you.
I think if we go team by team, Steven, I want your instant reaction for each team. Okay, Suns getting Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams.
Solid.
Heat getting Bruce Brown, Chris Boucher, Mo Wagner, 2031 Bucks first round, 2028 Pistons second rounder.
Good for their playoff desires this season. Good for their draft assets going forward. And solid in the now as far as having a win now vet.
And that's like $40 million in expirings, basically.
Yeah. Bucks getting Jimmy Butler, Torrey Craig, Josh Richardson.
Jimmy Butler back in Wisconsin. Marquette alum. Coached by Marquette alum and Doc Rivers. I think there's a lot of ties there. It makes sense that he will open up the teams that he would like to go to being there. It makes them even more of a contender than they are now.
I think Torrey Craig, Josh Richardson, also some underrated acquisitions if that happens. Bulls getting Jusuf Nurkic, Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, 2 first-round picks from the Suns and a second-round pick from the Pistons.
Bulls get picks.
And as a fan, you love it.
And Jonathan Isaac would be everything defensively that they hope for Patrick Williams to be.
That's true. Raptors getting Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Clintman, a first-round pick from the Suns and a second-round pick from the Pistons.
Still feels like Toronto would want more in the trade, but if they agree to it, this is something good for all existing parties.
Magic getting Bradley Beal and Kelly Olynyk.
3-point shooting with Bradley Beal in the Magic context, alleviating pressure and being a pressure release for Paolo. And I'm drawing a blank. Franz. I was gonna say Mo Franz for a playoff level. That's exactly what they need. They had that last season. They make it out the first round.
Pelicans getting Isaiah Stewart, Tim Hardaway Jr., and a 2027 first-round pick.
I want a gumbo.
And the Pistons getting CJ McCollum and Bobby Portis.
Bobby Portis is very Pistons.
Yes.
And CJ McCollum will give them some 3-point shooting that they've been missing. So I think it's decent enough for them to say yes to it.
All right, chat. Well, let us know what you guys think. Let's round out here on this Tuesday afternoon edition as we continue to climb towards that light goal with some super chats. Let's take a look at those real quick. We have Juju in that seat. Back to the Oso conversation. Says, do y'all think Oso can play the 4, slide KD to the 3?
It depends on the big that he's paired with in my book. Honestly, you need a 5 that can space the floor a little bit because spacing becomes cramped if Oso is at the 4. It would be nice to see kind of a jumbo lineup like that, but right now they don't really have a floor spacing 5.
I'm not excited about Durant having to guard 3s and 2s if he's at that 3 spot. But in the event of a trade that happens and the Suns get a floor spacing 5 that's of the starting caliber, I would like it as a template to see what it looks like over the course of 300 minutes together.
And I also think this is maybe part of the reason why you're sending Oso down to the G League. The only way that you're going to develop that type of touch that you would need, I'm not even saying he has to be a good shooter, but just general touch, floaters, and offensive capabilities, you're going to develop that in the G League. If you missed it earlier, I know some people are jumping in here late. Gerald, not necessarily a precursor for a trade.
No.
Could just be a move for Oso's development.
Right. Just give him some reps because you just traded for a new starting center. He's not seeing the floor behind Nick Richards and Mason Plumlee. So you want to get your rookie as many opportunities to expand their game as possible. That is literally why Matt Ishbia brought a G League back to the Valley finally, one of the last 2 teams that didn't have one. This is what it's for. And you can recall guys at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
He could be back with the Suns tomorrow for their game Wednesday for all we know.
Yeah.
I think the Valley Suns are playing some really good basketball. So it's not like he's going out there and he's going to be doing things that are not going to be conducive to the NBA level.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in having your own G League team that you can send a player to for that reason specifically.
And the fact that he has already seen some of the toughest centers in the league, right? He's already been put in really hard situations on the NBA level. His processing and everything will be so much quicker down there than if he started the season in the G League. So I would have been surprised if you told me this a day ago, but I'm okay with it, obviously. Leo with a $4.99 super chat. Let's dip our toe in a little WNBA talk. It's off topic, but Steven, what do you think of the Mercury getting Alyssa Thomas and Sparks getting Kelsey Plum?
We'll have a lot to talk about on Thursday's Mercury podcast, so make sure you tune in for that. No Suns that day, so we'll be all in on Mercury unless obviously trade stuff happens. But Alyssa Thomas to the Phoenix Mercury is a big time move. Finally got news on what the trade package was that they were sending out. It's tough that Natasha Cloud's not going to be around anymore, but you add a player that can play pseudo point guard for you the way that she operates on the court. For people that don't watch WNBA basketball, the way that she can run the court offensively as a 4 is similar to how the Nuggets use Nikola Jokic. She can play out the post. She can initiate offense. She can be a handoff hub. She just unlocks a lot of things for them, but defensively is where she's going to bring the most value. A team that struggled on the boards and struggled to get stops last season will not have that problem this season with her.
Alyssa Thomas, a 5-time All-Star, 6-time All-Defensive Player, 2014 All-Rookie Team, 2020 Steals Champ, 3-time All-WNBA. A different look for the Mercury, especially losing Natasha Cloud. But Matt Ishbia continues to make big moves.
Yeah.
Not only in the Suns world, not only off the court, but of course also with the Mercury.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, like the 2-man game or 2-woman game with her and Kalia Copper as a cutter is going to be something to watch for sure.
Exciting stuff. 1000%. If you're a Hoops fan, you need to tune in to Thursday's Mercury podcast right here on PHNX Sports. It's going to be going down at 11 a.m.
These facts. I was hoping somebody said it.
Yeah, Suns need their own Alyssa Thomas. Amen to that.
Jimmy.
11 a.m. Thursday. We do not have a Suns show that day. That will 1000% tide you over. Steven, Erica do a fantastic job over there. And if you have not started paying attention to the WNBA or women's hoops, always a great time to get in. I know sometimes it could be like, oh, well, you know, I don't really know anything about it or whatever. Steven and Erica are going to hold your hand. They're going to walk you through it in the best way possible. It is definitely something that as fans of the NBA, we need to be investing more time into. So open your mind a little bit.
Now I'll say 2 real quick. Unrivaled women's basketball going on right now. 3-on-3, super high pace. A lot of marquee names involved. Other big thing, if you're just now starting to watch women's basketball, free agency starts on Saturday, So free agent signings can go official in addition to trades like we heard about today. So it's going to be a whole lot of news over the next 2.5 to 3 months before training camp starts.
Lots of exciting stuff and lots of content over at gophnx.com between Mercury Pod, Steven's Notebook, which we referred to at the top of the show, and go check out the trade article because there are a lot more Zach LaVine trades in there that we did not include in this show.
And we march closer to the trade deadline. Of course, that is next Thursday. We'll be doing a trade deadline special, but on the way there, pregame, postgame shows for every single game in between. Of course, that goes to tomorrow night's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, another massive matchup for the Phoenix Suns as far as the Western Conference standings. Just took down the Clippers, who are 2 seeds ahead of them. Minnesota, 1 seed ahead of them, sitting at 7th seed. And the Western Conference, our pregame will be at 6:30. Postgame will be right after final buzzer. And of course, you can find that all right here on PHNX Sports. I want to remind people before we leave that this Friday, Suns Warriors, another crucial, pivotal matchup. We have a watch party over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos Windhorst Pass. Go phnx.com/events to sign up for that. It is 1,000% free. FREE. Come watch the game with us. Come say hi. Come hang out. We're doing our pregame show and our postgame show live from there as well. Come meet Noah. Come meet Crazy Computer Guy. We thank everybody who's in here in the chat. 154 likes, about 100 short of the like goal. But you know what, Steven? It's okay. I mean, it's not. But I know everybody who's watching this on YouTube after the fact is also going to smash that like button. And if you're over listening on audio, I know you're going to rate us 5 stars wherever you listen on audio. Those small things that are absolutely free do so much in helping us continue to be here and communicate with the Suns community, to do the live watch-alongs, to do the watch parties, to do the post-game shows, and the amount of coverage that we can give our favorite team, your favorite team. It all is made possible by you, everybody who's watching here today, and of course you hitting that like button, subscribing. We just hit 36K. The march to 40K continues. I know we can hit that soon. If you want to follow along with the show on all social medias, you can catch us at PHNX_Suns. Of course, we thank Crazy Computer Guy Noah behind the Mac making all of the magic happen. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. You can follow Steven at StevenPG3. Remember the PH because it is important. And you can follow Gerald at Gerald Bourget. Would anybody like to take it away today?
I got it. Came short of the like goal, but the best way to make up for that will be pulling up to our watch party on Friday. So see y'all on Friday that didn't leave a like.
We all silly like the mayor.